Good afternoon, I'm Herman Green with the Midday News. A special welcome to those of you watching on onespotmedia.com. It's been a busy day for Clarendon police exhuming bodies found in a makeshift grave in the northern part of the parish. The police say 2 bodies have already been identified in separate graves in a sand mining area of a river tributary in Pennants. TVJ News understands that families from St. Elizabeth are on their way to the area on suspicion that the bodies may be those of 4 persons found who were missing from the area. The 4 went missing on April 18 following a trip from St. Elizabeth to Clarendon. The motor car used in that trip was found at Fogar Road in Clarendon. The police say other bodies are being exhumed from the same location, and we'll have more details in primetime news at 7. 5 men have been named as persons of interest in relation to the increasing violence in Augusttown, St. Andrew. They are being told to report to the St. Andrew Central Police today.
There are Owen McFarlane, Romario Powell, OC, Romario Campbell, OC Denny, Yannick Ellis, OC Slim Shady, Khadija Clegan, OC Najee, Kemar Powell, OC Marvin Markland, OC Papa.
Since last week, several suspected gunmen have been arrested in raids aimed at stemming the violence in the community. On Wednesday, the Halfway Tree Police arrested a second suspect in connection to last week's fatal shooting of a fruit vendor on Mona Road. He was captured during an operation in Augusttown. Another suspect was picked up last week. The vendor was shot at his stall by men traveling on motorcycles. Investigators say the vendor, who lived in Augusttown, was killed as part of the ongoing violence in the area. As the country's murder figures continue to climb this afternoon, concerns about where criminals are getting guns. The matter was discussed on TVJ's Smile Jamaica program on Thursday. More in this report.
More than 80% of the murders on record in Jamaica are committed with a gun. But where do these guns come from, and what are the security forces doing to clamp down on the problem? Inspector Diane Bartley says the guns for drugs trade remains the main source of illegal weapons in Jamaica. Speaking on TVJ's Smile Jamaica program on Thursday, she noted that the problem is affecting crime in other Caribbean countries where the guns are exported from.
I hear people always talking about us not being in control of our borders, etc., and where do these firearms come from. But we also have to understand how our neighboring islands also help as transition points for weapons coming from the south or coming from the north, and how there's an exchange, a meaningful exchange, profit for criminals in terms of the exchange of firearms, drugs, and how these affect our lives. If we remember back in the 1990s, early 1990s, there was that very active exchange between Colombia and Jamaica in terms of drugs, and there was also an increase in the use. That was when we started to see our firearm usage being increased in the committal of crimes. So that has helped to really push our crime statistics, so to speak, and has challenged us as a people in terms of our crime fighting.
Inspector Bartley explained the force's strategy to improve border protection.
Are we protecting our borders as well as we could?
Well, I can't speak to that. I think the Minister of National Security will be better able to speak to that. However, we know of the activities and we know of the intensification, and also how intel has been integral in the seizure and recovery of several rounds of ammunition and firearms.
Jeline Pearson, TVJ News.
By-elections for councillors in the Maypen North Division in Clarendon and the Yallas Division in St. Thomas are now underway. In Yallas, the People's National Party's Constantine Bogle and the Jamaica Labour Party's John Lee are competing for the seat to become the next councillor for the division. Voting began at 7 o'clock this morning at 31 polling stations across the division, and so far, no incident has been reported. The polls will close at 5 o'clock, after which the preliminary counting of ballots will take place. There are 9,145 registered voters in the Yallas division. Meanwhile, in Clarendon, the Jamaica Labour Party's Tanya Lee Williams and the People's National Party Earl Blake are vying to fill the seat considered a JLP stronghold.
Well, it's a bit slow, but people don't take them time and come out and do, Some of them say right now, later like they're doing something at home, but gradually it will pick up, I think.
How confident are you at this time?
Well, I know that with the help of God, and with God all things are possible.
I've been to several polling stations, voters are coming out. It's still early, but we're expecting a wonderful day.
The Maypen North by-election became necessary after the passing of former JLP councillor Melvin Jones in December. Road fatalities are down for the first quarter of 2018 when compared to 2017. The Road Safety Unit of the Ministry of Transport released the data on Thursday, which show a significant reduction in motorcycle crashes in Westmoreland. We have more in this report. % reduction in road fatalities for the period January 1 to April 26, 2018. The figures show that for the same period in 2017, there were 108 fatalities from 100 crashes. The numbers are down to 97 deaths this year from 86 crashes. A move in the right direction for Director of the Road Safety Unit, Kenneth here, but he is still far from satisfied.
So we are making some slight progress in terms of number of persons killed, but notwithstanding that, there are still cause for profound concern, especially as it relates to persons who are sitting in private motor vehicles. We have had 17 persons being killed in those vehicles. Last year was 9. Of those 17 persons, quite a bit were not wearing their seatbelt.
The most significant reduction is seen in Westmoreland, 23 fatalities for the first quarter of last year, 5 for the same period this year. Mr. Hare says one group of road users contributed significantly to that reduction.
I want to pick up the Westmoreland motorcyclists for keeping themselves safe. We have about only one motorcycle fatality in that parish since the start of the year. So far, last year, this time, we had 9. So that's a remarkable reduction in terms of fatalities among that category of road users.
While the fatalities among motorcyclists are down, Mr. Hare says there is still a general concern as there have been 21 deaths within this category of motorists. None of these victims was wearing protective gear such as a helmet. While Westmoreland's numbers are down for the first quarter of 2018, St. Elizabeth, St. Andrew North and Hanover now have the highest numbers. Overall, pedestrians account for the highest number of fatalities, followed by private motor vehicle drivers. Buoyed by the overall reduction in fatalities, Mr. Hare says the road safety awareness efforts, which were started this year, will be increased to keep the overall figures down for the year.
We continue to do our road safety operations in the Western Jamaica. We do not want to let up because we don't want to drop our hands in the West and then it get back out of hand. So we have significant outreach activities going on in that area.
Herman Green. Meanwhile, the Senate this morning began debate on the new road traffic bill. The bill will repeal and replace the Road Traffic Act. Leader of Government Business in the Senate, Kamina Johnson-Smith, opened the debate. Among the features of the bill, which was passed in the lower house in February, are a restriction on handheld devices while persons are driving, and the inability to renew motor vehicle documents with outstanding traffic tickets. More details will be in prime time news at 7. In the wake of 2 recent major flood events in Montego Bay, St. James, the National Works Agency, NWA, is taking steps to address the problem. Communication Manager for the NWA's Western Region, Janelle Ricketts, says $124 million is being spent to rehabilitate roads and drains in a project that's expected to be completed by August this year.
In Felicity, where we are right now, we have done major works in terms of widening the roadway. This roadway was quite narrow, resulting in some amount of traffic congestion. So we've widened it by approximately 5 feet, and we're now in the process of asphalting this section of the roadway. In areas, for example, Home Hill, we are constructing sidewalks and also improving drainage systems there, as well as resurfacing of that particular roadway.
Well, I feel justice to the road. And I feel very justice to the road. I'm here from a little baby. I'm a 61-year-old now. And the first time I ever see Earth Park.
Director of Safety and Security in Schools, DSP Colbridge Minto, says behavioral modification programs will soon be extended to primary schools and early childhood institutions. He says the move is part of the Ministry of Education's strategy to reinforce safety and security in schools, and the program will include input from the Counter-Terrorism and Organized Crime Unit, CTOC.
And whilst there are varying perspectives as it relates to gangs, we're aware that we do have students who have behavioral issues, and that is why it is important that we bring in the experts to help us to identify them very early. And the purpose of doing that is so that once we have done the early identification, then we can do the early intervention before they are full-fledged gang members.
He added that safety and security training will be provided for all principals and deans of discipline in schools across the island. Committees focusing on safety and security will also be implemented in all schools. DSP Minto was speaking at a recent safety and security training workshop in St. James. The Devon Primary School in Manchester has launched a chicken rearing project that's expected to teach students and provide nutritious lunches for them at the same time. The principal, Nadine Nemhard, says the initiative is part of the Education Ministry's National Standard Curriculum, which focuses on project-based learning.
I could not have been more excited about this project because when you see the visual presentation later, you will understand how excited our students become when they're exposed to avenues like these. And so we want to run with it, we want to embrace it, we want to use it to improve our literacy and our numeracy, especially on a national basis.
Charity organization Food for the Poor donated a poultry house and slaughterhouse and 200 chickens. Agriculture Minister Audley Shaw commended the project, noting it will also help to promote entrepreneurship among students.
It's not just handing out something, but providing an opportunity for us to learn how to be productive. And that I commend Food for the Poor on this project and hope that you can do many more like this across the country.
There was a dramatic moment at an unused transportation center in Araka, St. Mary, following the discovery of a snake about 2:30 Thursday afternoon. TVJ News was informed that a passerby saw the animal on the bushes and raised an alarm. Residents reportedly called the National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA, to get the reptile, but a man said to be well experienced with dealing with snakes eventually removed the animal and let it go elsewhere. The man said the bite from the snake would not cause any harm. And it's time now for our Fact or Fiction feature. Fact or Fiction. The Foundation for International Self-Help, FISH, Clinic was established by Professor Louis Grant. Find out the answer at the end of the sports segment of the newscast. We go on to news overseas. The leaders of North and South Korea have committed themselves to the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. They've also pledged to bring a formal end to the Korean War 65 years after hostilities ceased. In a remarkable day-long summit, the two presidents embraced, planted a tree and talked alone for more than 30 minutes. They later signed the Panmunjom Declaration for Peace, Prosperity and Unification on the Korean Peninsula. The signing commits the two countries to a nuclear-free peninsula, as well as to discussions on a formal end to years of conflict. Speaking at a banquet after Friday's talks, the North Korean president hailed the progress he said has been made. He said, quote, "We bid farewell to the frozen relationship between North and South Korea, which was a nightmare. And we announced the beginning of a warm spring to the world," end quote. In a separate speech, his South Korean counterpart promised a new era for the Korean Peninsula. And we go now to sports. An attacking first-half performance from the Reggae Boys was enough as they beat host St. Kitts and the Navies 3-1 in an international friendly at Warner Park. Jamaica opened the scoring in the 22nd minute through an own goal before Arnett Gardens striker Fabian Reed found the back of the net 2 minutes later. Cavaliers Chevron Marsh got the boys third in the 36th minute. St. Kitts found a consolation in the 54th minute thanks to Kennedy Isles. It was a debut victory for interim head coach Jerome Waite and also Jamaica's first win since August 2017. The Reggae Boys will now turn their attention to Antigua and Barbuda on Sunday. And finally this afternoon, the answer to our Fact or Fiction feature. We asked, fact or fiction? The Foundation for International Self-Help FISH Clinic was established by Professor Louis Grant. Well, that's a fact. Born in Vere, Clarendon, Louis Grant was surrounded by science from an early age. As a microbiologist and pathologist, his works have significantly impacted both the local and international spheres, particularly relating to the management and the treatment of tuberculosis, leptospirosis, and dengue fever. In 1985, he established the Foundation for International Self-Help FISH Clinic in Papine. The clinic offers medical services with particular focus on the treatment of eye-related sicknesses for lower-income groups and the very poor. And that wraps up the Midday News. I'm Herman Green. Join us at 7 for the Primetime News Package. On behalf of the News, Sports and Production teams, good afternoon.